No one believed in Darren Hale's ship, not even Darren himself. The Driftmare sat on Dock 42 of Kazari Outpost like a wounded animal. Its hull was covered in scorch marks. Its engines leaked coolant that hissed in the cold vacuum, and one of its stabilizer fins was tied on with insulated cable and hope. It looked more like a scrapyard sculpture than a spaceship. But it had one thing no other ship on the station had: a pilot mad enough to fly it. Darren stood on the deck, arms crossed, watching the refueling drone hesitate before plugging into his ship's ancient port. The drone beeped 3 times, tried to confirm compatibility, and then gave up with an error code. He sighed. Yeah, I wouldn't trust it either. Behind him, 2 dock workers laughed openly. You actually taking that thing off station? One of them called out. You know regulations call that non-flight worthy, right? Just needs a push, Darren said. Into a sun maybe. The other replied, grinning. He ignored them. He had heard it all before. Every engineer, every cargo broker, every drunk at the station bar had the same opinion. The Driftmare was trash, but they didn't understand it had survived things it shouldn't have. The fusion core had been rebuilt twice with mismatched parts. The nav system still ran on pre-collapse Earth code. Its AI, if you could call it that, barely responded to basic commands, yet every time it launched, it flew. Not well, not fast. But it flew, and somehow, it always came back. Darren ducked into the airlock, kicking aside a panel that had come loose. Again, the inside smelled like warm copper, grease, and burnt plastic. He liked that smell. It was honest. He slid into the pilot's chair, pulled a cracked console toward him, and tapped the comms panel. It sparked once, then came to life. Station control. This is Driftmare requesting departure clearance, he said. There was a pause. Then a tired voice replied, Driftmare, your flight plan makes no sense. You're jumping into the Fade Belt. That's pirate territory. And your ship's flagged yellow for engine instability. I know. A longer pause. Fine, you're cleared. Against my better judgment, don't die, he smirked. I'll try not to. The engines hummed to life like a bear being kicked. Awake. Everything on the panel flickered red, then yellow, then finally green. Barely. Driftmare lifted off with a lurch. Outside the viewport, Kazari Outpost began to shrink, its dull metal body orbiting a dim blue star. Ahead lay black space, full of risk, full of silence, and maybe something else. Darren stared at the darkness. There was something he hadn't told anyone. It happened 2 weeks ago. He was docked at a mining hub on Threnfer, arguing with a mechanic about coolant valves, when his ship powered itself up. All on its own. No command. No trigger. It had booted its system, scanned the area, and transmitted a signal in a code he couldn't decode. When he checked the log, there was nothing, no record. The AI, when asked, simply said, no action taken, but he'd seen it, he'd felt it. Since then, strange things had started happening. The ship reacted faster. The old share he'd tried to replace 5 times had rebolted itself securely overnight. The whole temperature dropped even in sunlight. Once, the main door wouldn't open until the pirate patrol passed by outside. Then it opened like nothing had happened. Driftmare was changing. Darren was halfway through a bland protein bar when the alert sounded. Incoming missile lock. He spit the bar out. What? His hands flew to the controls. Nothing on radar. No ship. No signal. Then the lock strengthened. AI confirmed threat. No reply. The missile was real and closing fast. He slammed the throttle. The Driftmare groaned in protest, its left engine sputtering. The ship spun sideways and dove between 2 broken asteroid fields. Then something impossible happened. But moved like it was alive, not like a rust bucket, not like a damaged old ship. It curved between rocks like a whisper, twisted through a collapsing debris field with a precision Darren didn't command. And then the missile exploded behind them harmlessly. In empty space. His heart pounded. He wasn't flying anymore. Something else was. When the Driftmare finally stopped, hiding in a cloud of iron-rich gas, Darren sat back, sweat running down his spine. What the hell was that? He whispered. Then came a knock. Not on the door. Not on the hole, on the airlock. 3 knocks, measured. Darren stared at the hatch. The ship hadn't picked up any life signs. No alarms, nothing. The knocks came again. He stood, hand trembling as he reached for the control panel. The hatch hissed open. A man stood there. Human, pale, tall, wearing a black uniform that shimmered like starlight. His eyes were silver. Darren Hell, the man said, stepping aboard. You launched early. That's inconvenient. Darren blinked. Who the hell are you? The man smiled faintly. I'm from a century you haven't lived through yet. And that ship, this one, wasn't supposed to wake up for another 63 years. He introduced himself as Kellen. Didn't say a last name. Didn't need to. His presence was calm, sure, like someone who had rehearsed every word. He walked the ship like he'd been there before, like he knew it, every panel, every joint, every weird screech of metal. You say you're from the future, Daron said, arms folded. Prove it. Kellen nodded, raised a small device, and aimed it at the Driftmare's AI console. Instantly, the screen flashed. Welcome, future commander. Chronolink, established. Darren's jaw dropped. I didn't program that. Kellen turned to him. No, but I did. In 2157, when we recovered this ship's remains. What are you talking about? Kellen took a slow breath. This ship, he said, patting the hull, isn't from your time. It's not even meant for one time. It's what we call a chrono-stabilizer. It folds into time. Monos exists in more than one history. That's nonsense. Is it? Kellen raised a brow. Then explain why it dodged that missile before you even touched the controls. Daron was silent. He didn't believe Kellen, not fully, but deep down, something was changing in him. Something had been ever since the Driftmare started moving like it had a soul, and now this stranger from the future was walking around like he had the answers. Why me? Daron asked finally. You weren't supposed to launch it. That ship was meant to stay buried until its recall signal activated. But you, Kellen smiled. You're persistent. So what happens now? Kellen's face turned serious. Now we find out who tried to kill you before history even knew your name. That night, as Darren lay on the narrow bunk, the Driftmare whispered. It wasn't sound. It was something else. A feeling like a memory, waking up inside. Someone else's dream. He saw flashes, Earth in ruins, ships in the sky. A voice calling out, from centuries ago, a young girl with a silver pendant saying, we have to stop the reset. And then, silence. The Driftmare pulsed once, dim blue light running through its systems. Daron opened his eyes in the dark. Something inside the ship had changed. Again. And outside, in the dark void of space, something else had noticed. No one had ever stepped onto the Driftmare without Darren's permission until now. The man who called himself Kellen moved through the rusted corridors like he belonged there. He wasn't surprised by the creaking floor panels or the blinking lights. He didn't flinch when a steam valve hissed from the wall or when the AI sputtered like a half-dead toaster. He simply walked with purpose. Where are you going? Darren asked, following him. To the core room, Kellen said without turning. No one goes into the core, not even me. The shielding's unstable. Kellen finally stopped and looked back at him. It's unstable because it's not supposed to run on this timeline's physics. You've patched it with modern junk, but the heart of this ship, it's still beating from 2180 tech. That doesn't make sense. It will, Kellen said. Soon. He placed his hand on the sealed door. The ship recognized him again. The locks clicked, the red lights blinked, green. The door opened. Daron stepped back. The core room was humming. He hadn't powered it up. He never powered it unless he had to. Inside, the chamber glowed with soft, violet light. Floating in the center was a rotating engine block far smaller than a standard fusion core, surrounded by pulsing rings that shimmered like water. What is that? Darren whispered. The chronocore, Kellen said. The reason every species that learns about it tries to erase it from time. Kellen explained slowly, carefully. The Driftmare had been found centuries from now, abandoned, burned, and fused into a canyon wall on a planet called Venerinine. No records showed how it got there. It was off the books. Outside all fleet logs, but the tech inside, nothing matched it. The engine wasn't just for propulsion. It was a stabilizer keeping the ship anchored even when time fractured. It should have never survived, Kellen said. But it did. Over and over. Until someone realized it was surviving across timelines. You're telling me this ship moves through time? Kellen nodded. Sometimes, without needing a portal, it slips. Darren paced slowly around the chamber. His boots echoed off the walls. That's not possible, he muttered. Kellen smiled. Do you think I walked here from the future? Daron stared at him. You didn't come in a ship. I came through a lock point. A moment in time when this ship was open and guarded between skips. The AI recognized me because I was here centuries ago. So why are you here now? Because someone noticed you activated the ship too early. They tried to kill you to reset the path. The missile. Kellen nodded. Yes. It wasn't random. It was meant to prevent you from becoming a fixed point. Darren frowned. What does that mean? It means you're not just flying the Driftmare anymore. You are part of it. You've touched a timeline node. You can't be allowed to die or live freely without affecting everything. Later that day, while Daron checked the ship's systems, something strange happened again. The AI came online on its own. not with his voice. Command. It spoke softly, calmly, like a memory. Core alignment complete. Signal acquired. Incoming message. Year 2029. Earth standard. Darren's fingers froze. He hadn't asked for any message. What did it say? Kellen asked, stepping up beside him. The screen lit up. A woman's face appeared, grainy, black and white, clearly from a pre-space broadcast era. Her eyes were wide. Behind her, explosions rocked what looked like a lab. To whoever finds this, she said, voice shaking. This isn't a distress call. It's a warning. The experiment has fractured the temporal shell we've opened, something we cannot close, and if you're receiving this, then the Driftmare responded, which means we failed. Then the screen went black. Darren stood up, breath caught in his throat. Who was she? Kellen looked pale for the first time. That was Dr. Alira Mox. She died nearly 200 years before this ship was ever recovered. So how did she send a message to it? Kellen's voice was quiet. She was part of the original Epoch Initiative, the secret group that built the first prototype of this ship, before it was even called Driftmare, back when it was called Exile 1. Darren sat down, overwhelmed. You said the ship was found wrecked, but if she was in the past, then maybe this ship wasn't just found. Maybe it's been out there running loops for centuries. That night, Kellen accessed one of the sealed compartments. He showed Darren a device hidden behind old plating, a small cube covered in silver lines. This is what they're after, he said. What is it? The last uncorrupted piece of the chronocode. With it, the Driftmare can choose its own point in time. Choose, yes, not be thrown around randomly, not be pulled. It chooses. That's what makes it dangerous. Kellen turned to him. That's why I came to help you unlock it. Before they find you again. Who's they? Kellen looked out the window into deep space. They call themselves the Time Wardens, and they don't protect history. They rewrite it, over and over, erasing anyone who threatens the version they want to keep. The next day, while testing the Driftmare systems, Darren saw something terrifying. A small ripple dot, like a reflection in a mirror but wrong. Ahead of them, space shimmered, and for a second a ship appeared. Sleek, black, curved like a knife. Then it vanished again. He turned to Kellen. Did you see that? Kellen nodded slowly. They've found us. The AI's voice came on again. New signal acquired. Time fragment approaching. Code Chrono Hunter class. Darren stared at Kellen. Can we outrun them? Kellen looked at the engine core. No, but maybe the ship can outsmart them. As the Driftmare began to power up for an emergency jump, the walls around them pulsed again. Brighter, faster. The AI spoke again, but now in a different voice. A deeper one. Timeline deviation confirmed. Activating locked memory file. Welcome back, Darren Hale. Darren stumbled back. That voice, it knows me. Kellen stepped forward. It doesn't just know you, he said. In one version of time, you built it. The message was from a dead century. The voice was clear, female, human, desperate, and without any known path through time. It had reached the Driftmare. Darren didn't speak for a full minute. He just stared at the screen. The message had come, inscrambled, broken, but unmistakably real. We triggered the breach. This timeline is breaking. If anyone hears this, do not activate the anchor point. This is Alira Mox, year 2029, Driftmare. If you're there, remember us. Then static dot and silence. Darren turned toward Kellen, who stood frozen like a man facing a ghost. You knew her, Darren said. In another time, Kellen replied slowly, but yes, she designed the original AI kernel, before any of this was supposed to exist. Darren shook his head. But 2029, that's before Earth even had deep space travel. She wasn't on Earth, Kellen said, voice tight. She was underground, beneath what's now ruins. She was working on time-phase theory. Everyone thought her work was lost in the second collapse, but she's talking to us now, yes, Kellen whispered, which means the breach she warned about may still be open. The Driftmare's AI began changing again. Its voice deepened. Its responses became faster, more direct, almost like it was remembering Dart, and then it did something no one expected. It replied, message received, signal match confirmed, responding. In core-locked language, the message sent back was encoded. The ship used a format that Darren had never seen, symbols that pulsed, looped, and shimmered like light caught in oil. What's it saying? Darren asked. Kellen stared at the display. It's using temporal layering. This language is from multiple timelines at once. It's not just sending words. It's sending memories. Darren's eyes narrowed. And to who? To the past, Kellen said. To Alira, to the people who built this ship before it ever left the future. 3 hours later, alarms went off. A Chrono Hunter-class ship appeared just outside Drift. range, black as night. Silent. Its engines made no sound because they didn't burn fuel. They bent causality. Daron activated full shield protocols. Can we fight that? Kellen was already at the weapons panel. Not directly. Its weapons erase moments, not just matter. It could delete us from our own past. Then why hasn't it fired? Kellen's jaw clenched. Because it's listening. It heard our reply. Sure enough, the enemy ship didn't fire. It simply hovered, and from it came a single data burst, a challenge. The Driftmare's systems translated it: surrender the Echo Core, or be unwritten. Darren stared. What's the Echo Core? Kellen turned. The part of the ship that connects time. It's like a spine that keeps multiple futures stable. Without it, the Driftmare becomes just another broken ship. They want to break it. No, Kellen said. They want to erase it from all history like it never existed. Darren didn't wait. He pushed the engines into overdrive. But this time the Driftmare didn't just move, it warped. The stars bent. Colors inverted. Time twisted around the hull. Suddenly, they weren't in regular space. They were somewhere else. Outside the known star chart. A dark, deep space filled with strange shadows and floating wrecks. Kellen looked around slowly. This is the graveyard of futures. Where broken timeline vessels drift. Failed abandoned tech that became too dangerous to destroy. Ahead, a massive object floated. A ship 10 times the size of Driftmare, rusting, open, glowing faintly. With power on its side was a symbol neither man recognized, but the Driftmare did. Its lights pulsed. Its core hummed. Anchor detected. Memory file restoring. Welcome to Origin node. Daron stared. Origin, yes, Kellen said softly. This is where the Driftmare was first activated, in any timeline. Inside the Origin node, they found pieces of truth. Massive data cores, sealed for centuries. One opened as soon as Kellen touched it. A projection flared to life, a woman with short hair, lab coat stained with ash, and wide, tired eyes. It was Alira again. But this message was different. This one was meant for Daron. If you're watching this, then the ship chose you. I don't know what year it is. I don't even know if Earth survived. But the Driftmare was built to find the truth across time. You are its key. Protect it. Trust it. And if they come for you, don't run. Make them afraid. Then the file ended. Kellen looked at Darren. Still think it's just an old rust bucket? Darren smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It chose me, he said. But why? Because you were forgotten, Kellen said. And forgotten men don't break timelines, they change them. As they returned to the Driftmare, the Origin node shook. The Chrono Hunter had followed. It hovered outside but didn't attack. Instead, it sent a signal again. Final warning. Echo Core will be extracted. Consent not required. The Driftmare's AI pulsed harder now. Then, without warning, it spoke not to Darren but to the enemy. Chrono Vessel Driftmare activated. Under Directive 01. Timeline lock engaged. Consent denied. Defensive memory initialized. The hull of the Driftmare changed. Panels reshaped. The ship grew. Longer, sleeker, older, damage healed. Engines lit up with light no one had seen before. The Driftmare wasn't running this time. It was fighting back in seconds. The enemy ship opened fire, a pulse wave aimed to erase them from the timeline, but the Driftmare bent space around itself, and the pulse passed harmlessly into vacuum. Kellen shouted, "You're not flying, are you?" Darren's hands were off the controls. "I haven't touched anything." The Driftmare twisted, turned, then fired a blast of blue energy that struck the Chrono Hunter, and time around it shattered. The enemy ship cracked open like glass, and vanished. No debris, no explosion, it had been erased. Kellen sat back slowly. "You didn't destroy it." "I didn't do anything," Darren whispered. The Driftmare made a choice. Later, as the ship cooled and space returned to silence, Daron sat in the cockpit and looked at the stars. "So this ship, it's alive." Kellen stood beside him. "Not alive like us, but aware. Aware of time, aware of threats, aware of you." "What?" Now Kellen looked serious. "Now we followed the signal. Alira sent it for a reason. You think she's still alive? In her time? No, but maybe, in another." Daron nodded slowly. "Then let's find her." And with that the engines flared again. This time, it didn't wait for a destination, it chose one. The Driftmare no longer felt like a ship, but it felt like a memory, one that was alive, unfinished, and somehow still dreaming. After destroying the Chrono Hunter, the vessel had grown quiet. Not dead, not silent, just watchful, like it was thinking. Darren Hale sat in the pilot's seat, hands off the controls again. He didn't trust them, not anymore, because he finally understood something. The ship didn't need him to fly it. Needed him to remember that night. As the driftmare drifted silently through uncharted space, the lights flickered on their own. Then the voice came. Not the AI's usual flat tone. This was different. Softer. Older. It sounded like someone trying to remember a forgotten song. Darren Hale, input recognized. Restoring primary thought protocol. The lights dimmed. The ship spoke again. Do you remember the garden? Duran blinked. What? He looked around the empty cockpit. What are you talking about? The AI did not respond in words. It showed him an image. A beautiful one. A garden under a glass dome, filled with green vines and golden light. Children laughed nearby. One of them held a silver pendant. A woman stood at the far end of the dome. Watched something fall from the sky. A ship. The driftmare, except it wasn't called that yet. Duran stood up, heart beating hard. Kellen, he shouted. Kellen rushed in. What happened? The ship. It showed me something, a memory, but it wasn't mine. Kellen stared at the dark console, then back at Duran. That's not possible. You're not wired into the neural system. I'm telling you, I saw a place, a garden, a girl, a pendant. Kellen's face changed. Describe it. So did. As he finished, Kellen's eyes narrowed. I know that garden, he said. It was destroyed in 2133, during the sundering of Europa Dome. That was a century from now. Yes. And you just saw it. The AI's voice returned. Neural sync at 8%. Thought bridge initializing. Organic memories merging. Duran stumbled back. It's syncing with me. Yes, Kellen said, almost afraid now. It's trying to remember what it was. Through you. But why me? I don't know, Kellen whispered. But it's not done. The ship's lights flickered again. Panels on the wall slid open. A soft humming filled the air. The driftmare was waking up more fully in the next hours. Things got stranger. The ship stopped obeying voice commands, but responded to Darren's thoughts. He would want the lights to brighten, and they did. He would think about slowing speed, and the engines adjusted. The ship wasn't reacting to buttons anymore. It was reacting to him. I don't like this, Duran said. This is too much. Kellen nodded. It's rare, but not impossible. It's called neural resonance. Some ships bond to a pilot, but this is different. This ship isn't just responding, it's merging. It's remembering you as someone it already knew. Duran shook his head. That doesn't make sense. It does, Kellen said slowly. If you helped build it, or if another version of you did. Then came the second vision. Duran wasn't asleep. He was simply somewhere else. He stood in a steel room, lights blinking red, alarms ringing. A body lay nearby, burnt, crushed. In his hands was the silver pendant. On the wall, a console read, warning, timeline breach, singularity event in progress. He heard himself speak, but not in his own voice. It was stronger, deeper. If this ship survives, send it anywhere. But here, lock the core, let it drift. Then he touched the console. The driftmare vanished, and Duran woke up gasping. Kellen found him an hour later, sweating and pale. You saw it again? He asked. Duran nodded. That was me. Or someone, like me, and the ship. I think I sent it away. A long time ago, to escape something. Kellen looked grave. Then maybe the driftmare wasn't just built to travel time. What are you saying? I'm saying, maybe it was built to hide from something. Something it couldn't fight. The next day the AI began using new words that it referred to Darren as primary. It called Kellen observer. It called itself Ion. Ion, Darren asked. Kellen looked surprised. That was its original name back during early development. How does it know that? I didn't tell it, Darren said. Neither did I. The ship was digging into memories neither of them had access to. Memories of events that hadn't happened yet. Then came the third warning. As they drifted near a broken relay satellite, the AI locked onto a signal. Incoming message. Source. Unknown age 3,290 years. What the hell? Duran muttered. That's older than the ship. But the message was clear. To the one who carries the Echo Core, this is your final orbit. They are coming. Do not go to the still sector. Do not activate the final gate. Let the driftmare sleep. Kellen's face went pale. Still sector. It's a place outside time, he said, where broken moments pile up. No one goes there. Not even the Time Wardens. Why? Because it's where the fracture began. The AI made a choice then. Without command, it altered course. Wait, where are we going? Darren shouted. The screen answered, destination, still sector. Kellen shook his head. No, this is wrong, we're not ready. The ship replied. You must remember before you arrive. Memory restoration critical, singularity path initializing. Duran looked at Kellen. What does it mean? It means, Kellen said darkly, That whatever we were trying to forget, the driftmare is going to make us remember. Outside the ship, stars vanished. The edges of space began to stretch, then twist, then fade. They had entered the still sector, a place without motion, a place where time forgot to flow. And from the shadows ahead, something moved, something watching, something that had been waiting for the driftmare to return. They entered the still sector without warning. One moment, stars stretched across the screen. The next they vanished. Not blinked out, not blocked, not destroyed, just gone like they had never been there at all. Duran leaned forward in his chair, staring at the darkness outside. Where is everything? Kellen stood beside him, lips pressed into a thin line. This is the still sector. Time doesn't move here. Not like it does everywhere else. No stars, no light, no decay. How's that possible? It's not. That's why it exists. The driftmare floated in silence. No engine sound, no hum, no pulsing lights. Inside the ship, everything was still working, but outside, there was no motion, no direction. It felt like they were inside a dream, a quiet, hollow dream where something used to happen and then stopped. Duran whispered, "Why would the driftmare come here?" Kellen didn't answer. He was staring at something. Out the viewport, a shadow long wide, moving, but not forward, not backward, not even side to side. It slid, like thought, like memory, like fear. The AI ion activated again. Its voice had changed again. Deeper now, almost human. Anchor point approaching. Memory field strong. Singularity traces detected. Daron asked. What's an anchor point? Kellen answered. A location where time folds in on itself. Where a decision, a massive one, once happened, but the timeline can't decide which version is true. You mean like a glitch? Yes, but one so powerful, it echoes forever. The AI displayed a map, not of space, but of possible outcomes. 7 paths, 7 fates, 1 location, all centered on one word, glowing in red. Venari. Kellen's face paled. No, not here. What is it? Kellen stepped back. That's where we found the driftmare crashed, torn in half, embedded in a canyon wall, no life signs. You said that was in the future. It was. Then why are we here now? Kellen didn't respond. Because the answer was obvious. They weren't just traveling space anymore. They were approaching the moment where the ship's true fate had been locked away. A moment someone, maybe even Darren, had tried to erase. The driftmare descended silently into the black mist of the still sector's center. Shapes drifted outside. Wrecks. Hundreds of ships, some cracked in half, some still glowing faintly, some unfinished. This is a graveyard, Daron whispered. But these ships, some of them haven't been built yet. Kellen nodded. That's because this place collects them before or after their destruction. It's not just a location, it's a conclusion. A what? A place where doomed futures gather. As the driftmare drifted near a broken structure, its lights flickered again. Daron stood, breath held. The ship suddenly stopped. The AI's voice returned, but now it spoke with emotion, real emotion. Welcome to Node 0. Initiating final restoration protocol. Primary memory unlocking. Daron stumbled back. The walls around him began to shift. Panels opened, lights changed, and then he saw it. Himself standing in the hallway. Not a reflection, not a dream, another version of him, but older. Scarred. Wearing gear that didn't exist yet. The older Daron looked right at him and spoke without sound. His mouth said 2 words, "Don't remember." The vision blinked away. Gasped. Kellen grabbed him. What did you see? I saw me in the future. I don't know, maybe in another path. Kellen's eyes narrowed. What did you say? Not me. He said something. What? Don't remember. The AI suddenly locked them in place. Unauthorized memory detected. Counter-process engaged. Then came a wave of force unseen, unfelt, yet crushing. The ship creaked. The lights died. The core dimmed. Outside the hull, a figure appeared, a massive shape, cloaked in robes of light and shadow, eyes like endless tunnels. Not alien. Not human. Not alive. Not dead. Something else. Kellen whispered the name. Darren stepped back. What is it? They are the first to escape time, Kellen said. But not with machines. With will. They exist outside history. They consume timelines that defy order. They eat futures. They erase potential. If a timeline grows unstable, they devour it. Remove the people, the events, even the memory of what could have been. Darren's voice was shaking. So why are they here? Kellen turned slowly. They're here because you remembered the... Nolborn didn't speak, but the driftmare screamed. Its hull vibrated. Its core shook. And then the AI did something unexpected. It started to cry. not sounds. Data. The ship poured out fragments of lost time, pieces of Earth before the war, children's voices from Europa domes, a wedding ceremony from a future that never happened, a whisper from a woman who never lived but somehow loved. Darren, anyway. You must forget. You must forget. You must forget. Darren gripped the console. No. He looked into the shadows ahead. I won't forget. I'll remember everything. And in that moment the Nullborns stopped. They did not attack. They faded, vanished like smoke under a bright sun. And suddenly, the ship unlocked. The lights turned green. The core pulsed with life. The Driftmare had made it through, and it had chosen to remember. Kellen sat in silence. You shouldn't have been able to resist them, he whispered. No one has. Not even the AI. I didn't resist, Darren said. I just remembered something stronger than fear. What? Darren smiled faintly. Hope. As the Driftmare powered forward, the map returned. Now only one path was lit. One destination. The final one. Kellen looked over the display and spoke one word with dread. Earth. The Driftmare was heading home. Or at least, what used to be home. Earth. But it wasn't the Earth Darren remembered from old maps and station broadcasts. This Earth was quiet. Too quiet. As the ship came into high orbit, Darren stood at the main viewport and stared down at the blue planet. It looked perfect. Too perfect. No storms, no satellites, no space traffic, no signal clutter, not even heat signatures from the continents. It was as if someone had pressed pause on the entire planet. Kellen stepped beside him, tense. This isn't Earth as it should be. Then what is it? A preserved version. Preserved. Yes, Kellen whispered. Frozen by someone. Or something, trying to protect it from the Driftmare. The AI spoke again, clear but strange, almost like it was choosing its words carefully. Home signal detected. Earth chronolog. Level 5. Entry prohibited by Temporal Directive 18. Response protocol. Override. Kellen's eyes widened. There shouldn't be a Temporal Directive 18. That code doesn't exist anymore. Then who activated it? Daron asked. Before Kellen could answer, the AI displayed a name. Directive issued by Central Command, Earth Year 2381, authorized by Captain Daron Hale. Daron staggered back. What? Kellen stared at the display. That can't be right. You never made it to that year. I've never even been in charge of anything. And yet, Kellen said slowly, you signed an order to block Earth from the very ship you're flying now. They had no choice. The Driftmare lowered into the atmosphere. Anyway, the override was accepted, not because of a hack, but because the ship knew he was the same man, the same Daron Hale, even if that version hadn't existed yet, or never would. They landed in what used to be South America. The rainforest was gone, replaced by metal plains, smooth as glass. Trees had been replaced with silver towers, completely silent. No wind, no insects, no birds, only stillness, and the hum of time shields vibrating around invisible walls. This place isn't abandoned, Daron said. It's contained. Kellen looked worried. Yeah, and they're not hiding something from the outside. They're keeping something trapped inside. They moved carefully, following the AI's path. Eventually, they reached a structure shaped like a pyramid, but inverted, pointing down into the ground. The AI identified it instantly. Memory Vault. Epoch Protocol Facility 1. Do not enter. Daron stared at the locked doors. What's in there? Kellen looked around. Answers. And probably a version of you we're not supposed to meet. Daron reached for the controls. The door opened before he touched it, like it had been waiting. Inside the facility, the walls shimmered with images, not screens, reflections of possible timelines. Daron saw himself in hundreds of uniforms as a general, a prisoner, a scientist, a ghost. Each one faded in and out. Each one carried the same look, determination, and loss. Kellen touched the nearest wall. This is a chrono mirror, a machine that watches paths that were never chosen. Darren stepped closer. Why build this? To understand why the Driftmare kept coming back. They reached the central chamber, and that's when they found him. Another Daron, sitting in a chair, plugged into the vault's core. His skin was pale, eyes closed, chest barely rising. He was alive, frozen in time, held in stars above him. A message, played on loop. Directive 18, preserve subject, block all Driftmare-class vessels, await final outcome. Kellen whispered, he's the one who blocked you, but he is me. Yes, the version of you that lived long enough to fear what the ship could do. Suddenly, the stasis machine pulsed. The sleeping Daron opened his eyes. Bright, silver, not natural. AI-enhanced. He looked at the man, smiled faintly. You finally arrived, he said. You've been waiting? Daron asked. Not exactly. I've been trapped. I tried to keep myself from returning, but I failed. Again, you blocked me. Yes, the older Duran said calmly, because you're not ready. The Driftmare isn't done evolving. If you unlock the final memory, you end the cycle. What cycle? The one I started. The ground shook outside. The time shields flickered. A voice crackled over the AI. Not from the ship, from the sky itself. Driftmare-class vessel detected. Preparing reset sequence. All temporal entries to Earth must be erased. Kellen's face hardened. They've found us. The wardens are coming again. The older Duran sat back. Then it's time. Let me show you what the ship really is. He touched the vault panel beside him, and everything changed. The room filled with light. Duran fell to his knees. Images, real memories flooded into his head. He saw the ship's creation, built not by scientists but by refugees. People fleeing collapsing timelines. The Drift wasn't a warship. It was an ark. Carrying the last fragments of forgotten worlds. Memories, voices, dreams, people who had no home in history anymore, and he had sent it out to protect them all, to find a place no one could touch. The vision ended. Darren stood up, tears in his eyes. It wasn't a weapon. No, the older version said. It was a sanctuary. And now, the future fears it. Outside, the sky cracked. A Chrono Warden fleet appeared. Massive, cold, empty. Each ship, shaped like a blade, each one carrying weapons to erase entire realities. Kellen shouted, "We have to leave." But Daron shook his head. "No, we're not running this time." He turned to the older version of himself. "What happens if I unlock the final protocol?" The older Duran smiled. "The Driftmare remembers everything. It becomes what it was, always meant to be." Darren reached for the control panel. The final lock glowed red. He pressed his hand to it. Final protocol accepted. "Welcome back, Architect Hale." And the Driftmare awakened. The Driftmare woke up. Not like a machine, like a memory rising from a deep sleep. Its walls shimmered, its lights turned gold. The pulse of its core shifted rhythm, no longer mechanical, but alive, like a heart returning to life after a long silence. Outside, a Chrono Warden fleet hovered in Earth's upper atmosphere, waiting, watching, preparing to strike. But inside the ship, something ancient had stirred, and it was no longer afraid. Stood at the center of the bridge. The moment his hand touched the final control, the Driftmare remembered everything, not just battles, not just timelines, but worlds, entire civilizations long erased by time, a jungle city eaten by flame, a desert people whose language had never been recorded, an underwater species whose sun went nova before they could leave their ocean. They lived inside the Driftmare now, not as ghosts, as preserved memory. The ship was not just a time vessel, it was a refuge of forgotten worlds. Kellen stepped forward, voice low. "What have you done?" "I didn't do anything," Darren said. "I just let the ship remember what it really was." The AI's voice returned. No longer mechanical, no longer emotionless. Now, it sounded like a choir, 1,000 voices speaking at once. Men, women, children, creatures, songs, archive restored. Memory streams active. 81 civilizations recovered. Time fracture maps aligned. Driftmare status, conscious. Outside, the Wardens finally moved. They were not afraid. They had erased planets before. They had deleted people mid-sentence. They believed in clean timelines. To them, the Driftmare was a virus. A mistake. A dangerous idea that could spread by simply remembering. Kellen stared at the Warden fleet. "They're charging. 20 seconds until full chrono burst." "We won't outrun that," Darren said. "No, then we make them understand." Kellen frowned. "How we show them what we carry." Darren stepped to the center of the bridge. "Ion," he said. "Opened the archive." The walls of the Driftmare peeled away. Not physically. Through space. A projection unlike any weapon. Light, history, emotion. The ship released memory into open space, not as data, as truth. And the Wardens saw it. They saw a boy losing his planet to a collapsing sun, staring up at the Driftmare's shadow as it arrived just in time. They saw a machine world destroyed by its own creators, only for one last whisper of thought to be saved in Driftmare's core. They saw themselves long ago, before they became Warden scientists, poets, dreamers who once believed in remembering, and they hesitated. Duran felt the power surging through the X. He didn't guide it. He couldn't. The Driftmare was in full control now. "Memory is not the enemy," the AI said. "Erasure is." But one Warden ship did not stop. The largest. Black, blade-shaped. It powered a chronoburst so massive it would collapse Earth's orbit into a time crater. Kellen shouted, That one's not listening. No, Daran said. It's not a warden anymore. What is it? A memory killer. The driftmare reacted instantly. Not with weapons. With legacy. It reached deep into itself, into its archivond, summoned every piece of truth it had. Time bent. Light swirled. Reality split. And for one moment, every lost world the ship had saved appeared in orbit around Earth. Like ghosts. But not dead. Each one shimmering with color, each one crying out in unison. We lived. We mattered. We are not forgotten. The warden dreadnought fired, but it never hit. The driftmare's core spun faster, becoming a beacon, a light so powerful it overrode the attack with a single force. Remembrance. The blast vanished. The dreadnought shattered. Not into pieces, into memory. Its own erased victims turned against it, flashes of every choice it had. Deleted, flooding its systems. It collapsed into nothing, like it had never existed at all. Silence. Then the other warden ships turned. One by one, they deactivated their weapons. And vanished. Not to attack again, to leave. Darren collapsed into the captain's chair. The AI spoke softly now, just one voice again, his own. Thank you for remembering me. Later, as the ship floated peacefully above Earth, Kellen looked out the viewport. I never believed in destiny, he said. Neither did I, Daran replied. But maybe, remembering is stronger than destiny. Daran smiled faintly. Maybe that's why they feared us. Ooh, he looked at the ship's walls, at everyone who tries to control time, because the moment you remember the forgotten, you become free. The driftmare moved again, not away from Earth, but toward its final task, to restore the last world it had once failed to save, the only one it had tried to forget, and Daran knew exactly where they were headed. The driftmare had no set destination. Now it didn't follow stars or charts, it followed memory. The ship carried the echoes of 81 lost civilizations, people who had no graves, cities that no longer existed, cultures erased by time and war. And now it was heading toward the last one, the only one it had failed to save. Daran Hale stood on the bridge, silent. He knew where they were going before the AI said it. The display pulsed softly. Destination, Varel, Sector Black, Final Archive Zone. Kellen turned sharply. Varel, that world was lost centuries ago. I know, Darren said, because I was the one who locked its memory away. The ship's descent was slow. Below them, the remains of a once living planet. Ash-covered oceans. Ruined cities, half buried under glass and stone. But even here something faint remained: color, music, laughter caught in the folds of time. The driftmare hovered just above the surface. Daran stepped off the boarding ramp, boots sinking into scorched ground. He looked around, and whispered, I'm sorry. Behind him, Kellen scanned the area. There's something under us, deep, buried beneath the crust. Darren nodded. I know. That's where the final piece is. The final piece of what? Of me. They reached the ancient vault hours later. Metal doors sealed shut by codes, older than the ship itself. Daran approached the console. He didn't type, he remembered. The door opened inside. Soft blue lights flickered to life. A chamber of glass walls, filled with frozen holograms. Voices whispered from every surface: a little girl singing, a family laughing, an old man telling a story about stars he would never see. These weren't recordings, they were living memories, trapped, fading. Kellen whispered, these are the people who died here. No, Darren said. These are the people I tried to save. At the end of the room, a single cry echoed. You came back. Daran froze. A child's voice. A boy. The hologram shimmered. A small figure stepped forward. Big eyes. Dark hair. A pendant around his neck. The same pendant Darren had seen in his earliest visions. It's you, Darren breathed. You're real. I was, the boy said. But time forgot us. The wardens erased us. And you ran. Darren's knees hit the floor. I didn't mean to. The boy stepped closer. You did what you had to, but now you have a choice. The driftmare spoke again, not with its AI voice but with all the voices it carried. Final archive located. Restoration possible. Risk collapse of stable timelines. Outcome unknown. Kellen stared. If you restore this world, the timelines could break again. Or mend, Darren said. If we believe memories have value and if we're wrong, then we forget again. Daran whispered, standing slowly. And that's the true death. He placed his hand on the final console. The core of the driftmare opened. Streams of color flowed from its heart, light from other times, other places, other people. It poured into the sky, down into the crust, through the dust and the silence. It lit the mountains. Woke the wind, turned ash into grass. Fire into bloom, rubble into stone houses, and the people. came back. Not as ghosts, as echoes restored from memory. They stepped out of time, like waking from a dream, smiling. Alive, the wardens felt it immediately, across the galaxy. Their systems blinked. Error messages, warnings, but no violence, instead, silence, and a quiet surrender. The future did not break it. Breathed. Duran stood at the heart of the reborn city. The child looked up at him. You remembered us. I'll never forget again, Darren said. The boy smiled and slowly faded into golden light. Now part of the world once more. Back on the driftmare, Kellen sat beside Darren on the quiet bridge. So, Kellen said, now what? Darren looked out the window. At the stars. At the ship that no longer needed a map. Now, he said, we help others remember what they've lost. The driftmare's engines ignited, not with noise, with purpose. It turned slowly from the restored world and vanished into the stars. A ship built from forgotten moments. Carrying the weight of memory. And the hope of futures not yet written.